Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Arrow Preacher Podcast. I am your host, the Arrow Preacher, and it's been a minute, has it not? I don't remember the last time that I was able to join y'all in a live session, but here we are and welcome back. So basically, I don't have a lesson prepared. Today is not for that. Today is just to let you all know why there's been such a gap in the live broadcast. Well, I had surgery, but let's start at the beginning. I lost Riley, as most of you know. I lost Riley a couple months ago, and it's been really, really hard on me. It's been difficult for me to come back here to the office. I've spent very, very little time in here, largely because this is where her and I spent the vast majority of our time together. Most of the time I would watch a show or a movie here on my laptop, not in the living room. I would watch it here on my laptop, and she would be sitting next to me and coming here in the office and doing lessons and preparing for lessons. It was 100% of the time she was in here with me, and not having her around has been very difficult. Coming in here has been very emotional for me, and I've been avoiding it. So since I've been avoiding it during my grieving period, I've just not been able to do much work. Now, I've still been teaching lessons. I have been teaching a men's discipleship Bible study group where we grow together, we learn together, we have conversations together, we share things together, we pray together. And that has been a very wonderful experience for me to be asked if I would be willing to teach, because I was not the original teacher of the class. So that's been a pretty amazing time for me to be able to dive into God's Word and do that. Finished up the book of Ephesians, and then we moved right into the book of Romans, which, if you've never done a full study in Romans, if you want to learn how to share the gospel, Romans is the book to do it. So things have been kind of difficult lately. First and foremost, I had surgery. I had surgery on the 24th of November, which, if some of y'all have been around long enough, you know that is just after the 1 year anniversary. The 1 year anniversary of my open heart surgery was the 22nd of November. So 1 year and 2 days later, I had surgery again. I just got out of the hospital yesterday. I spent 2 weeks preparing in Romans, and I was determined to get home and go teach that lesson last night. I felt very strongly that that's what I needed to do, and by the grace of God, I was able to get out and do that. But let's be kind and rewind for a little bit. And if you're new to the channel, I'll kind of give you a little glimmer into God's grace and God's mercy and God's beautiful timing, but also God's miracles. So last year, early last year, it was probably March, April, I had experienced something, and during some time at the VA, they found out that I had a inguinal hernia, which is very common in men of my age. So I had a little hernia, and they said, you've got a hernia, and I didn't want surgery. I said I was going to push it off as long as I could. Fast forward to July, I was at a Bible school, a vacation Bible school in the summer, and one of the youth that I'd known since he was a little child came up to me and asked me if I would do a foot race with him. And while wearing a knee brace and while having major cervical spine issues and just a whole bunch of stuff, God removed all of those inhibitions and said, "Go ahead, raise him." And I didn't listen to my body. I ignored everything and I raced him. And fun fact, and I'm proud of this, I won that race. However, the next day I was in the hospital. I paid for it. The hernia had bulged again, and this time they did some scans and everything, and they said, you really need surgery. You don't have one, you have two. You have one on each side, and you really need to have surgery to get this fixed. And at this point in time, I acquiesced and said, fine, I'll do it. However, I want to do it in October, and I want to do it after the church's fall carnival. And they agreed, and they said, that's fine, I can wait. So I went, I did the surgery. The fall carnival was amazing last year. I went, I did the surgery. The next day, however, of course, if you know that that kind of surgery is laparoscopic surgery, they go in through the belly and they go down, but they put air in you, so, or gas in you. And so the gas had actually migrated up through the diaphragm, which is not uncommon, but it's also not super common either. It migrated up into my left shoulder, and I was in excruciating pain. They did some scans, and they said, okay, we didn't nick anything. It truly is just gas from the laparoscopic surgery. However, and this is where, not where the first miracle is. The first miracle is the fact that I raced that young man and won. The miracle is not necessarily that I won that race, but that I ran the race. They said, there's something wrong with your aorta. It looks like you have a problem with your aorta root, which is the area in which the aorta meets the heart. Their threshold for surgery is 5.5 centimeters. So if you reach or surpass that 5.5 centimeters, they recommend immediate surgery. Why? If most people don't know, some people have heard of the term the widowmaker heart attack. The widowmaker is the aorta. If the aorta becomes blocked and you have a heart attack, cardiac arrest, most of the time, if you have a black widow heart attack, you die from it. Very few people survive the widowmaker, and there's a reason they call it the widowmaker. It's because it's incredibly deadly. So, an issue with the aorta is incredibly dangerous. So they said, you need immediate surgery. You're not emergent, you could be emergent, we don't know, but we need to do some tests, we need to run some scans, and we need to look at this and kind of plan this out. And they said, you have two options. Option A, we go in and we replace the root, leave the valve. Option B, we go in, we replace the root and the valve. The thing is, the bicuspid valve tends to fail. So if you don't know what a bicuspid valve is, think of a mouth, right? The mouth has two little leaflets, okay? You've got the upper and the lower. It literally opens like Pac-Man's mouth, okay? Think of a tricuspid valve, more like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, except for it only has three little three little mouthpieces that open, okay? In reality, we decided to they ran the scans. Okay, they ran the scans and they looked at everything. They did a heart cath, and they wanted to make sure that while we're in here, we're going to check for everything to make sure that you don't have any blockages anywhere, that there's nothing else that we need to fix while we're in here. Praise God, there was not. Everything looks beautiful. I don't have any clogs. I got the pipes are working fine. Okay. So they bring me in. They do the surgery on the 22nd of November. It saves my life. However, while the heart surgery does save my life, they did have to change the valve. We had decided that they were going to do the valve anyway, but when they looked at the valve, it was, in their medical terminology, gnarly. So, yeah, apparently gnarly is a medical term that they can use to describe what disgusting valves look like. So they ended up having to replace the valve. They replaced it with an artificial valve, which I can now hear tick every time my heart pumps. You get used to it after a while. So I sleep with the fan on because I can hear the ticking. So the fan white noise drowns out the ticking of my heart. But at least I know the heart is still working. However, I went into what they call heart block. So a little anatomy lesson. Where the aorta connects to the heart, right below it is what is known as the electrical highway center of the heart. That is the area that the electro signal thingy runs for the heart to tell itself how to pump together the top and lower sections. So that section was damaged because it's very difficult to make that line. And in some cases, no matter how careful they are, that section is just damaged and it stops working. So I went into what's known as a partial heart block. It's a total partial heart block. I had some very little activity, but not enough for the heart to actually pump, which technically is partial, but they call it total heart block because it won't run on its own. So they ended up having to install a pacemaker. At that point, I became a part man, part machine, otherwise known as a cyborg. By the definition, cyborg. It's kind of cool because I can be like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a cyborg." And people look at me funny. They're like, "What?" Most people don't think of a pacemaker creating you, making you as a cyborg, but my heart relies on that pacemaker. Without the pacemaker, my heart doesn't work. So that means I am interconnected to a mechanical device and therefore cyborg by the definition. So a few months later, after everything started to heal and I was able to start sleeping in different positions, I would move to, say, my right side, and I would have jumping or spasming on the left side of my diaphragm from about mid-belly button all the way to the side of my ribs. I would go to the doctors, and they at first were kind of stymied. They were like, "I don't know what's going on. That's weird to me." But of course, they were just ER doctors. They're not cardiologists. They don't know all the ins and outs. It's not their specialty. So eventually, I would see the electropulmonary guys, and we would talk about it. And what we found out was I was having diaphragmatic spasms triggered by the pacemaker. Specifically, I was having positional diaphragmatic spasms, meaning it wasn't always doing it. It depended on the position that I was in. Well, that's a challenge, is it not? If you can't always sleep on your right side, and sometimes you can't even sleep on your back, that leaves you with you can't sleep on my stomach. I have a CPAP, so I can't sleep with my face on a pillow like that. It doesn't really work. So it was a problem. They spent the last year reprogramming the pacemaker, but every time they tried to reprogram it, there was really only truly one programming, because they can do different leads to different locations and stuff like that, and they have a lot of options. And it's quite interesting when they interrogate the device and they pull it up on their screen, and they can make your heart beat faster, they can slow your heartbeat down to next to nothing, or they can have your lobes pump at different times, and it's weird. Okay, it's a weird thing watching someone play around on a computer screen, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm dying. My heart is racing so fast. You know, it's a weird feeling to have all of things they have in the palm of their hand, be able to control my heart entirely. But alas, nothing worked. So the decision was made, we got to go fix it. Originally, I was under the impression that they were just going to go in, change the lead, run a new lead, put it a little bit higher away from that phrenic nerve, which is the diaphragm nerve, because what was happening is when the diaphragm moves just a little bit and it gets closer to that heart, every time the pacemaker sends a note or a message to the lead, to the heart, to pump, it's arcing to the phrenic nerve, which is causing the phrenic nerve to spasm along with my heart, okay? So that's the problem. Well, I was under the impression that they were just going to run a new lead, and that was it. Same pacemaker, just new lead. Well, that's not what happened. So what happened was they replaced everything. Whole brand new device. Very different kind of device. So they went in, okay? Let's think about this for a second, okay? Have you ever put in a mailbox and you put the mailbox in the ground, you dig the hole, you put the mailbox in the ground, and then you pour cement around the mailbox, and the cement binds to that post, and it makes sure that that post doesn't go anywhere? Well, that's kind of what happens when your body heals around a device that's been implanted. It connects to that device. So they have to go in, and they've got to kind of carefully cut away at all of those connective tissues to be able to remove the device. But it's not just removing the device from the shoulder. They have to remove the leads from the heart itself as well. Some of the leads from the heart itself as well. And they got to go and they got to cut those loose and they got to pull them out. And then they have to cauterize that area, because I'm on blood thinners. They have to make sure that it doesn't bleed. So what they did was that little section of the heart, that electrical highway, they've got to run. So basically they drilled a hole in the heart and put a new lead in that section. And it took 2 tries, so they drilled 2 holes, because my heart is weird, and the first area was just too thin, and it went all the way through, and too good at their job. And the second one bit fine. They said the first hole heal up in just a couple days, and that's fine, no issues, and very little bleeding because it's on the inside of the heart. So here's the thing. While I have the first pacemaker, they have to run the second pacemaker, connect that one, so that way it can transfer control from one pacemaker to the other pacemaker, so they both have to be plugged in at the same time before they move the other one, which is weird, because then I've got one pacemaker hanging out of my body, I got one pacemaker in my shoulder, and eventually they've got to be able to make the switch. And I asked the doctor, I said, how do you do that without my heart stopping? And he said, quickly. He said they have about 80 seconds to do it, to transfer control, which is mind-blowing when you consider how short 80 seconds is, okay? So they go in, they make the switch, And now my heart is actually pumping at a more natural way because this new device, which is kind of new technology, this new device is using the natural pathways that God created in the heart instead of forcing both by technology to pump. Now that's just one lead into the center of that electrical center is telling my heart to pump, basically now bridging the gap just using what God created, which is beautiful and amazing that they can even do that. Unfortunately, I was back in the hospital on Saturday. I had a little bit of bleeding into my shoulder, which unfortunately on blood thinners it happens. All this to be said, okay? The miracle is that God was there and allowed these things to happen. And I didn't even tell you about the miracle of when I went back to the hospital over Christmas last year for the pericardium infusion after the surgery. I had lower flank pain. I thought it was a kidney stone. They went in, scanned for a kidney stone. No kidney stone. However, you've got fluid building up around your heart and your pericardium, and we need to go in and drain that. But the only way that I found it was this random flank pain that turned out to be nothing, and the next day that flank pain was gone, never to be seen again. It's a miracle. Because I was asymptomatic. Had I not gone to the hospital, I would have become violently ill. Because the fluid, which was blood, actually pooling in my pericardium from the heart surgery itself, that blood was crushing my heart, stopping my heart from being able to make a full pump. It was a miracle that we saw these things because we weren't looking for them. Random gas pain leading to find this. No symptoms at all that I had a problem with my heart. A seemingly unrelated symptom sent me to the hospital to find that my heart was being drowned in blood. It's amazing how God works. It's amazing at God's sovereignty and how He's moving the pieces so that way we can live our lives almost completely unaware of what He's doing until we can actually see it and look back and say, wow. Way too many coincidences, way too many things that had to fall into place to make this happen without it being a miracle. So we just celebrated Thanksgiving, and I hope all of you had a good Thanksgiving, and I hope during that Thanksgiving you were able to look back at your life and see and be thankful for your blessings. As the song says, count your blessings one by one. I challenge you to realize that no matter how many times you count your blessings, you are never going to be able to count them all. Here's why. Every breath you take is a blessing. The home that you live in, the car that you drive, the family that you have, the country that you live in is all a blessing. Now, this country is under attack from within. This country is under attack by enemies. And I think I'm going to spend more time on this topic later. But we are under attack. And it's not through violence. It's through politics. And some say, well, you can't mix religion and politics. Watch me. I'm going to. We were founded as a Christian nation. State constitutions had to show their faith in their original state constitutions in order to be approved by Congress. And originally, to run, you had to prove that you were of the faith. But our country is under attack. But I am still thankful that I live in a place that I'm able to come on here to preach the word of God and not be arrested, because a man was just arrested in the UK for coming to the United States and posting photos of him shooting firearms. Freedoms are being eroded all over the world. Freedoms are being trampled upon all over the world. And we, as the United States, once again, are the last hope for freedoms. If the United States falls, these freedoms fall with it. No one is coming to our rescue. But I am grateful. I am eternally grateful of having this platform, of having wonderful men stand by me, praying for me all day, every day. Men that I can call brothers in the faith. Friends that are praying for me. Friends that contact me and ask me, how you doing? Are they perfect? No. Do I wish I had more friends that I could actually go out and spend time with and do activities with and, go do stuff with? Absolutely. I pray for that every day. But I am thankful for the friends that I do have, that even though I don't see them on a regular basis, even though I don't have those individuals to get together and go out and spend time with or go to dinner with or go to lunch with, I do have friends that are amazing prayer warriors, that pray for me, that are there for me. And I tell you what, I was in the hospital for 4 days. I had a pressure dressing on my shoulder, which hurt. I had tape everywhere. It left kind of tape burn on my skin and super sensitive on my skin, which, it is what it is. I had 4 days of vancomycin antibiotics to make sure that there is nothing growing as far as an infection is concerned. And that what they found was I'm just bleeding into my shoulder. And that's what the pressure dressing was for, to minimize some of that bleeding in the shoulder, because they could see that it was fluid building up in the shoulder pocket. But I spent the last 2 weeks preparing a message about God's wrath. And God allowed me to leave the hospital, come home at 2:30 in the afternoon, eat a very, very quick lunch/dinner, get picked up at 4:50, and then go teach a lesson about God's wrath. I believe it was Romans 1:18 through 32, I believe. Had a beautiful, wonderful conversation with a great group of guys about how important it is to recognize and be thankful that we are free from God's wrath as far as our punishment from sin goes when we accept Jesus as Lord. But we also have to be careful, because we cannot just allow these sins to continue without saying anything. Because sin of knowing something is right and not doing anything about it is a sin. Doing what we know is a sin and doing it anyway is a more egregious sin. And then knowing something is wrong and then approving or even getting others to do those kinds of sins will invoke God's wrath. And some of God's wrath is God taking his blessings away. and handing you over to your reprobate mind, your sinful mind. He has done that in the past. He handed Israel over to their sinful desires, and he let them do whatever he wanted, and he just pulled his grace from them. He turned his back on them to let them do whatever they wanted. And I'd say we are here in that place yet again. People are doing whatever they feel is right. People are living in their sin. And not only are people living in their sin, but they're encouraging others to do it as well. Even members of the so-called church are telling people, yeah, it's okay to sin. Yeah, go ahead. You know what? I'm going to say it. The church is allowing homosexual people to be pastors. And then not only are they allowing them to be pastors, but then they're preaching about God being transgender. Or they're preaching about people living in sin and glorifying that sin. Those are the kinds of things that will pull God's blessings from this country. And we, if we are not careful, will suffer the wrath of God turning his back on us. Because we as believers will have to live in a country that God is allowing itself to destroy itself. And we have to be careful. But we do have many blessings here. We have to make sure that we continue to be safe in what we do. We have to make sure that we continue to guard our hearts from the world, to continue to seek God first in everything that we do, and in everything we do to please the Lord. But if you're a Christian, I call you to battle. If you're a Christian, I call you to the front lines. It's not enough to go to church, sit in a pew, say a prayer, go home, and do nothing the rest of the week. If you're a Christian, I call you to do more. If you're a Christian, I call you to battle. Put on the full armor of God and go out and share the gospel. Do not be ashamed of the gospel. Go out and with courage share it. Share it with all who need to hear it. Do not assume that somebody wearing a cross is a Christian. Do not assume that they understand the need and the relationship that you must have with Christ. Do not assume that just because someone goes to church, that means they're saved. Because Jesus said, there will come a day when many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? Have we not cast out demons in your name? Have we not done many works in your name? And he says, depart from me, I never knew you. You who practice lawlessness. There are many who go to church who think that they're saved but aren't. So I encourage you, share the gospel. Talk about the gospel in your church. Talk about what it means to be saved. Talk about what it means to reject sins. Talk about what it means to face the wrath of God eternally if we do not know Christ. The path to salvation is narrow. Am I a perfect man? No. Do I sin? Yes. Do I have trouble with certain sins? Yes. We all do. But I implore you, seek Jesus, and he will make himself known to you. I am walking testament of many miracles. I have said before what happened to me after I was shot through the shoulder. The bullet ripping through my lungs, nearly bleeding out and dying. What I experienced was beautiful and magical and divine. Changed my life. Not only did it save my life, but it forever changed who I am. The person I was before the gunshot was not the person who woke up in the hospital. Essentially, the person that I was before that gunshot died. And then the person who woke up went through years of changes and studying scripture and allowing God to teach and to grow me into a different person than I was before. I am new because of God, and God saved my life last year. Finding the heart defect. He saved my life in Iraq multiple times. Miracles that can only be described as miracles because there's no rational or reasonable reason to have survived what I experienced in Iraq. And yet here I am, a testament of God's love, grace, and mercy. So I implore you, as we move into the holiday season, as we move into the Christmas season, let's put the Christ back in Christmas. Let's put Christ at the top of the reason we celebrate. Because it is Christ's birth. Yes, he was not born in December. Yes, I get that. But since we don't know, December's as good a day as any to celebrate it. You don't always know when your dog's birthday is, and yet you celebrate their birthday someday. It may not be the exact day, but you still celebrate it. Or at least some people celebrate their dog's birthday. I did. I'd go out and I'd get my dog like a Frosty Paw or something like that and give her a nice little treat. And I'd give her a new chew toy and celebrate her birthday because I was thankful for her. So let's celebrate Christmas by putting the Christ back in Christmas. So I want to wish you a happy holidays, to include New Year's. I also want to wish you a Merry Christmas. And I'm praying for you. And remember, as always, if you want prayers, you can leave me an email. My email is in the description below. But I would always ask you to like, comment, and subscribe, because without those things, YouTube just doesn't share, doesn't give enough insights to the videos to be shared later. So as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Leave me an email by finding my email in the description below. And as always, if you've liked this video, the best thing you could do is share it with a friend who you think needs to hear the gospel. But I wish you all well. I wish you all peace. Be careful this Christmas season. People are crazy out there. Be careful. I hope to see you soon. And I wish you all well. And thank you for the prayers. I hate to do this, but I almost hate to be a little selfish asking for prayers for my continued healing, that I don't have to go back to the hospital anytime soon. 2 weeks is or a week and some change is plenty time for me to be in the hospital. I'd rather not be there anymore. But I will see you guys again soon. Take care, and I hope to hear from you.